Welcome to a very holiday edition of This Week in Missouri Politics, joined by the Senate Pro Tem in waiting, Senator Cindy O'Loughlin. Thank you so much for making the time.
Thank you for having me on.
Merry Christmas.
And Merry Christmas to you.
Let's just start off the top. If you talk to the governor, if you talk to the House members, talk to some of your colleagues in the Senate, they say Governor Kehoe is serious about public safety. He has a plan he wants to implement. Going to be tricky. It's focused around the city of St. Louis, but I think there's benefit to the rest of the state there. What is something that would actually work that the state could do to reduce crime in the city of St. Louis?
Well, I mean, the current topic that we kicked around last year didn't get really anything totally accomplished, but what was suggested was that the state should take over the commission that sort of oversees the police like they do in Kansas City. And of course, the city of St. Louis does not want the state taking what they see to be their authority. So what we did was we met once a week, every week for several weeks, and we talked about, well, what could we do? What could we do that can make a difference? And the city had people there. Some invested citizens were there. The police unions were there. And we kind of sorted out some things that we felt like we could do that would still leave the authority with St. Louis citizens, but would also have some input from the state. So whether the governor can get that across the finish line or some form of that, I believe he can. And I think it's a good compromise.
Can you get state takeover of the St. Louis City Police Department done with Carla May in the Missouri Senate?
It depends. I mean, Carla is ultimately, I think, a reasonable person. She has a lot of stamina.
I think that's what makes her hard to go around, is because people think she's reasonable and they admire her,
And I think she has to be involved in the conversation. So she wants a safe St. Louis, too. So,
do you worry that as the Republican Party, if you go, I remember when the state ran the police department, I thought there were a lot of murders in St. Louis then. There were more probably since. I don't think it's been a successful experiment, but I think there's some pessimism among some folks that no matter what you do, there's going to be a bunch of crime in the city of St. Louis.
Well, I think it's strongly tied to the failure in education there.
Sure, but that's a 20-year fix, right?
Well, I mean, you have to start somewhere.
Yeah.
And if you have young people who are attending a school that is basically collapsed and they don't have a future, well, what's the easy thing for them to do? Go into crime. And I think all of that has to be talked about at the same time.
Let's talk about, I love your Facebook page. Folks ask where you go to learn news of Missouri politics. I always say the Missouri Times, but also Senator O'Loughlin's Facebook page. You came out and discussed some changes in MoDOT. What brought you to hitting the keyboard on MoDOT changes?
Well, I always thought that Patrick probably had served the amount of time he needed, and he should probably move on, our former director.
Well, you can tick off Dan Hageman. You've accomplished something. Yeah. I mean, that's probably you.
Yes. And I think MoDOT suffers from an inward sort of obsession of their own rules and regulations, and they don't look outside of that small little sphere. And so those of us who are out in the public and looking at different projects that need to be done, they all ultimately connect to the highways, and trying to work with MoDOT and getting them to see how important that is has been pretty difficult. So I thought when Director McKenna left that they would go a different direction, and I strongly encouraged them to go a different.
The silence after their pick was deafening. I mean, if you weren't complaining, it took the governor 2 days to come out and say this will work. I don't think anybody was like, wow, what a great pick.
Well, I think I said something to the effect, if you're going in a different direction, then you don't choose a 40-year bureaucrat. Not to diminish the things that Ed Hassinger can do, sure, but he is not one who's going to look outside the MoDOT complex. And that's what we need. We need input from people outside of that group, and we need someone running MoDOT that will listen to that input.
Well, let's be honest. Right now, MoDOT is in a good place. MoDOT, but a lot of that is because the legislature has poured money into MoDOT. It is not the projects MoDOT's doing is not because the formula of gas taxes produced this windfall. It's because the legislature put some of the ARPA money into MoDOT, and good for them. But it looked like the way they handled that was almost a snub your nose to, while, yes, they have a dedicated revenue source, the things they're proud of right now are all money that's coming from the legislature.
Exactly. So, I mean, these are not goals they accomplished on their own. These were things that happened because we said, we have to do something about I-70. There are things that we just simply have to address, and we gave them the money to do that. And I think I made the point, and I really believe this, that MoDOT listens to the federal government a lot more than they listen to the citizens of Missouri. And so I would like someone who would change that.
All right. President Trump gets elected, said, if you elect me, I'm getting rid of DEI. Eric Schmidt, vocal, saying, vote Republican, we're getting rid of DEI. Mike Kehoe, look, folks, in that camera and promise them, you vote for me, I'm getting rid of this DEI, left-wing nonsense. Yourself, the incoming House Speaker, every member of the supermajority has all said, we're not doing DEI. I challenge you to find me the guy in Shell Bynum today swinging a hammer out in the cold weather, paying taxes, saying, if I only had time, I would spend more money in Jeff City to call me a racist. The Department of Insurance basically thumbs their nose at all of you. There's a new director coming up. You're the new chair of gubernatorial appointments, I assume. Will you use that authority to force them to keep their promises and end this left-wing nonsense?
Well, it's certainly going to be a topic we discuss, and I think that pretty solidly, at least the Republican caucus is behind it's really kind of a reverse racism.
Sure it is.
It's not hiring people based on their capability, but on some other factor. And then people can sometimes bemoan the fact that we don't have the most qualified people doing particular jobs. Well, it's because we're not looking at their qualifications.
And I remember I was on the Senate floor, someone said, there's no DEI in state government. Well, we produced pages and pages of it. The Governor like Kehoe complimented me on the radio and saying Springfield about, thanks for discovering this. I'll just ask you the question. There'll be a new director of the Department of Insurance nominated by Governor Kehoe. You have the person who's done all this silliness, John Rehagen, probably the most left-wing state bureaucrat you have, which is an accomplishment. Will someone get a hearing in your committee on gubernatorial appointments if they don't promise to clean this mess up?
What I've told the governor-elect is that I want to support him in the things that he wants to do. And I've also emphasized with him that, we need to take a new direction, and there's a lot of things within our departments that are not working. This is one of those.
If you confirm somebody to run a department that by all accounts is a dumpster fire, could people take you seriously that you're going to clean the woke stuff out of state government if you don't demand the new director commit to cleaning it up?
I'm not familiar with the person, but I guess my answer to you would be we would expect that to be gone.
Let's talk about the court plan, the Missouri plan, how they pick judges. Again, back to your Facebook page, which is wonderful. If folks don't follow it, they should. You like a different way of picking judges?
Well, I think what we have is, again, it's a little bit like MoDOT. It's a closed system where sort of elite attorneys have a system where they pick out the group of people that we can then choose from to have as Supreme Court judges. And the point that I made was these picks often do not reflect the will of the people. So the Supreme Court has in the past, and other judges have too, reversed what a supermajority of Republicans has passed in the legislature. So it would be my contention that we need to hear from the people, and we need to have judges who really more fairly represent conservative ideals.
Well, if you were to get rid of the Missouri plan, I think it's fair. You might have a more conservative Supreme Court, but I think it's unquestionable that you'd have a more liberal Western District Court of Appeals, a more liberal Eastern District. Good Lord, Kim Gardner. The one thing I think you can say is that crime in St. Louis has gone down since Kim Gardner left. You wouldn't have prosecutor Kim Gardner. The St. Louis folks would have liked Judge Kim Gardner.
So there's a lot of conversation just to be had. And I have a couple of people who are sort of constitutional experts who want to talk about this topic. My goal, and I think the goal of our caucus anyway, would be to find a way to have judges who more closely resemble conservative value.
Let's talk about your caucus. Obviously not the most united crew of people. I thought it was interesting, though. I mean, I hate to say this, but I think it's true. Caleb Browden and Bill Eigel and everybody from those leadership elections 6 years ago are gone. I think that helps. I saw Jason Bean go into caucus and not do a contention for majority floor leader. I thought that was a sign of unity. I think, is it fair to say that you're more united than you've been during your time in the Senate right now?
Oh, absolutely. I've had a lot of conversations with each individual, and I've talked to people both who are just in the regular group and then those who are in the Freedom Caucus. I've talked to them about what their priorities are. And, we're slowly putting together kind of a roadmap where we can accomplish the things that we all want. The only difference there has been between Freedom Caucus members and regular members is the degree to which they're willing to go to stop action in the Senate. And as you say, some of those factors are gone. And so far, everybody's been pretty reasonable. And I believe that they will continue to be.
It does feel like yourself. It feels like, frankly, and again, I don't know if it's fair to these people, but them being gone helps. I think Governor Kehoe being there is somebody that I think a lot of folks want to see succeed and get behind. I wonder how long that lasts. You tell me.
There will always be points of contention. There will be hard conversations that have to be held. And the difference, I think, and I plan for it to be this way, those conversations, for the most part, can be held behind a closed door. We don't have to get on the Senate floor and make big speeches that really ultimately are election speeches. If we're really looking for common ground and we're looking for the ability to move something important forward, then the most contentious things we can talk about on our own. And then when we come to the floor, I think we debate the merits of the legislation. A lot of the things that got held up in the last, really, since I've been here, were never even debated on the floor. The Senate is supposed to be a body that debates the merits of legislation, and we need to get back to that.
Talk about our next guest, Senator Doug Beck, the incoming minority leader. What's your relationship with him?
I like Doug.
He does seem like a reasonable guy.
He does. We, if we have something coming up that I know is really important to him and maybe it's going to affect him or some of his members, I always go and talk to him. When he was elected to be the leader for his party, I texted him and said, look, I'll try to work with you as best I can. I'm never going to tell you I'll do something and then not do it. And he's never done that to me either. To me, the most important thing in the Senate is that you be truthful and you respect the other people. You don't have to agree with them, but you need to at least have a level of respect where you can listen to them and you can be truthful with them so they know what to expect and you know what to expect.
Senator, you ready for Christmas?
No.
It must be tough. Like you got all these people wanting things with legislation, all these senators wanting things, and then you got gifts for the grandkids.
Like everybody else, I'll get on my phone when I have a spare minute and I'll order a few things, and then maybe not like everybody else, then I forget I've ordered them. So it's almost like a surprise even for me.
I open these boxes up that come here, and I don't know if it's business. I don't know if it's a toy.
Where'd that come from?
Oh, yeah. Well, Senator, thank you so much for making the time. Hope you have a very Merry Christmas.
Thank you. Merry Christmas to you.
We'll be right back with the Senate Minority Leader, Doug Beck, who joins us after this.
For more than a century, the St. Louis Carpenters Union has shaped our communities. Through trusted alliances, we deliver skilled professional craftspeople while our business partners provide the kind of quality jobs that keep our economy humming. It's a blueprint that has worked since 1882. Turning Missouri into a right-to-work state stalls progress, wipes out jobs, and kills momentum. Right to work is wrong for everyone. Let's keep Missouri moving forward. Visit carpdc.org to learn more.
Missouri farmers have been doing what's best for their land for generations. After all, no one knows what it takes to feed and fuel a growing global population better than they do. So why are trial lawyers threatening Missouri farmers' best defense against weeds? Our farmers don't need to be controlled. They need to be supported. Keep glyphosate in our state. Show your support at TakeControlMissouri.com. Paid for by Modern Ag Alliance and support of Missouri farmers.
Data captured by our state-of-the-art monitors helps us pinpoint the timing and location of severe weather more accurately and respond to trouble more quickly. Ameren, Missouri's investment in smart technologies like this is one way we're improving reliability and restoring power faster than ever. Responding to trouble before trouble hits. That's energy at work. Ameren, Missouri.
Welcome back. This week of Missouri Politics, we are now joined by a man that everyone's going to be familiar with, Senator Doug Beck from South St. Louis County. Thank you for making the time.
Thanks for having me, Scott.
Of course, viewers of our midweek update will recognize you, but it's Flat Doug, who kind enough to have a cardboard cutout. I actually spent a lot of time talking to Flat Doug during the midweek update.
No, I've seen that before, and sometimes I don't think Flat Doug's views and my views align, but that's fine.
Well, it's kind of odd how Flat Doug's views and my views generally align. It's kind of weird how that works out. So tell me, heading into the legislative session, it's a bit of a break. There was a very contentious leadership race 6 years ago. Now, Denny, Caleb, Bill Eigel, all the senators that were kind of part of that leadership fight, they've all termed out. It does feel like it's a chance for a different Missouri State Senate.
Yeah, and I had a good relationship with Senator Rowden, and I think I have a great relationship with Senator O'Laughlin and I hope for that to continue. So we'll see how that goes and how her leadership style is more of a no nonsense type leadership style, but that's fine. Senator O'Laughlin, what I've noticed about her is she's willing to listen to you, and if you have some good ideas and points of view, she takes those into account.
If I was going to describe your leadership style, I think I would throw in the word no nonsense as well. I would assume the two of you can have pretty short meetings because you speak candidly.
Yeah, I think, and it's going to be based on truth. So that's what I found with Senator O'Laughlin, where we're truthful with each other, and that, not to say that I wasn't truthful with anybody else, but
we eat the truth quick.
I just want to make sure people don't read between the lines. Sometimes you say stuff like that, they're like, well, but we have a really good relationship in that aspect.
Well, I've seen a lot of the Republicans that predict, we're going to get along great. And I think the only thing the voters and the constituents and the taxpayers should be more scared of than them fighting all the time is them getting along and wanting to pass a bunch of things. I believe if you're from the government and you're here to help, you're not here to help me.
Yeah, no, and I'm sure that, it seems like everybody's getting along, but it seems like everybody's getting along every session. And I think, as you know, the way the Senate is set up, it's set up for individuals to be individual senators, and we'll see how that plays out as we go along. But I think if there's a certain focus on certain, obligations that we've made in the past, hopefully we can make those commitments, those promises come true. And that's my goal, as this Senate session goes on.
So as you look forward, I think, I do believe Governor Kehoe coming in is going to unite a lot of folks. What's your relationship like with the incoming governor?
I have a decent relationship with the governor, and I'm not saying we're super close or anything like that. Well, we've had some good conversations in the past, and quite frank, candid conversations, over the past year or so. I haven't really sat down with him yet and talked to him, but I plan on doing that at some point, and having those conversations, hopefully before session starts or maybe in the beginning of session.
It is interesting. I think there's going to be a lot of people congeal around some of his agenda items. Some of those items touch St. Louis, specifically St. Louis City. I think he's got, being from St. Louis City originally, I think he's got a real heart for folks in addressing the crime issue. It's a very complex thing. I think some folks wonder why he even wants to dive into something that has been the third rail for a lot of politicians. Where do you start off with a crime plan for St. Louis City?
Well, I think we have to look at St. Louis City, St. Louis County is one. A lot of times, because they both come after us. A lot of times, there's a lot of legislation is against the county or comes after the city or folks that don't live there.
Sure.
But we also have to recognize too, it's the economic engine of the state, and it still is, and to this day.
We don't like to admit it, but us Hicks, we get free cheese because of St. Louis County. Manchester Road produces a lot of government money.
We pay
pays for a lot of things.
We pay a lot of bills.
Yeah.
And in city and county and in general, and if you have the metropolitan area, we definitely have it.
Specifically, I do. I mean, there's crime in St. Louis. Sure. Yes. And maybe it's went up, maybe it's went down. I think for most of my professional lifetime, reasonable policymakers would say there has been a problem with crime in the city of St. Louis? Specifically, I think you'd say North City.
Yeah, there's and if you look at where the crime is, it's usually where there's been disinvestment into the communities.
It's definitely a factor of positive.
Yeah, it's a big factor. And when you do that, and folks don't have hope, they turn to other means, right?
Sure.
So we see that a lot of time. I would like to see us put a big investment, and part of that we do have the NGA coming on. That's not my district, of course.
So you think part of this is if you're going to come in and want to take control of the police, you better not. I think it's important for Republicans. Now, not necessarily politically, but I think it's important for how the success of the endeavor, if it doesn't look like they're coming to the city of St. Louis giving orders. If they come with money and with other resources, I think it makes it a whole different perspective than the state taking over the police department again.
No, and I agree with you. And that's the reason why we had the Hancock Amendment in the first place was to, if you're going to make these laws that affect an area, you have to pay for it also. But that's not the case. If this gets passed, because there was a constitutional amendment passed a year ago, I guess, or so, 2 years ago, maybe, or no, in August, that would allow that would force the city, like Kansas City, to put a certain percentage of their budget into the state police, into the police department if it becomes state run.
2 years from now, you'll have Donald Trump in his last midterms. Historically been a bad midterm for the party in the White House. You'll have pickup opportunities, real opportunities in Lee Summit and the city of Springfield. Mm-hmm. Those are seats that I think you could honestly tell anybody considering and investing in campaigns, those are seats you could win. Really, Donald Trump on that, top of that, in the presidency might even help you 2 years from now.
No, yeah, I would agree there too, and I think we're looking at that as an issue. I'm not taking anything for granted. We also thought Amendment 3 would have helped in this last election, and you and I had this discussion, and turned out, guess what, it didn't work out. So
you think though, I think Amendment 3 may be the most direct line I can see. Is if you're someone in Chesterfield, I think it's pretty evident from the results of the election. Folks in Chesterfield are pro-choice, but they were able to vote for a pro-choice measure, and then there's some things they agree with the Republicans on. They would go vote for the candidate they wanted, maybe because of those things. Is it another example of these issues, while they are impacting lives and things that you support, I think they make it harder for you to win at the ballot box.
I would have to eat a little bit of crow there and tell you, yeah, I think that might be the case. And we've only seen this before in different elections, where it was in a primary where you had the ballot initiative. So we did, and you and I had this discussion. So what we saw was it didn't have the coattails that we thought we were going to get, or people that believed in that 60% they were voting for the Democrat also. So
you're a very compelling figure in Missouri politics. You're from South County. If there's places that Donald Trump overperforms a Republican, it's not in central Missouri. Those folks are conservative in every walk of life. It's Independence. It's South County, St. Louis. It's the Boot Heel, places that he does run stronger than other Republicans. You being a South County guy, there's some parts of Trump I think you must understand.
Well, yes and no. I understand part of it. I understand that he does a really good job of talking to working people, mm-hmm. and it frustrates me in the sense that the Democratic Party is the party of the working people. But it frustrates me that he talks to them and they understand that and they hear that, and our party sometimes doesn't do that message enough. I try to, and
Do you think it is time for Democrats to talk to folks like yourself? I mean, you'd be a major figure in this state that used to vote Democrat, had a Democratic U.S. senator as early as 6 years ago. Is it not time for maybe some of leaders like yourself in the Democrat Party to say, wait a minute, we got to change how we talk to folks?
I think those are conversations we're having, and we're gonna look at all this in general. But I don't want to lose something that is truly our lane to be in. It's easy to talk these things, but if you look at the policies that have been set forth, whether it's right to work, that was all by Republicans. Whether it was to get rid of prevailing wage, that was by Republicans. Paycheck deception, that was by Republicans. This trying to knock down unemployment, that's by Republicans. Make everybody a contract worker, 1099, and take away their benefits, that's by Republicans. That should speak for itself. However, that message is not getting through. Kind of like Amendment 3 didn't get through to the rest of the voters saying, hey, if you're going to vote for this, you should vote for these people. And that's the disconnect we're having. And how we make that happen is, good question.
Yeah.
And it's things that we need. It's the conversations we need to have as a Democratic Party is what are we messaging? Who are we appealing to?
Let's look forward to the legislative session. What's something you want to see worked on by the state of Missouri?
Well, I think, I think what we need to do is there was some promises made last year to raise teacher pay and raise the formula and move from attendance to half attendance to enrollment and get some more money into our public schools. Those promises need to be kept. If you recall, during the last part of session, all the Republican leadership was in the House trying to whip those votes to get that passed through the House at the very end. Now they need to keep they need to keep the promises of the amount of money that's supposed to be put into public education. That needs to happen. That's number one. That for sure. And then I think we need to look at childcare because it's an issue. It's an issue for businesses, an issue for working families, and we need to address that. Or whatever that looks.
Is that one of the times you said you were for working people? Here's your chance, right?
Yeah.
Get after it.
I think so. And I think public schools is for working people too. I think that's the vast majority of people send their kids to, 95% of the people send their kids to public schools, right? Let's give them a great education. And there's ways we can do that,
So what are you hearing from your colleagues in the majority party? What are they saying they want to work on?
I haven't heard, they haven't really been discussing that. There's, we hear what the governor is, some of the things that he's put out there that he wants to focus on. However, if you look at our budget, the receipts are down, general revenue is down.
Are the good times over in the Missouri state budget?
I'm pretty sure. It sounds like if you look at the national level, they're looking at clawing back all the rest of the resources that were out there from the Biden administration, whether it's the Infrastructure Reduction Act, the Inflation Reduction Act, or the other possibilities. They're looking at clawing back those things. So if those are clawed back, then I don't know what position we're going to be in after that. But right now, revenues are down.
And that's the margin with all the tax cuts.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's a good thing, you can judge a good thing, bad thing. But the budget cuts are going to come if they pull that money back. I mean, that money is the last cushion you have for one more year to have a good budget year, right?
Yeah. And a lot of that money was, whether you've seen it or not, was the reason why we're doing I-70 across the state. That money was into the budget, and that's how we were able to do that, and the I-44 plan and what's currently going on there. And a lot of the things that you see happening, is because of that.
Senator Doug Beck, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
That'll be it. We'll be back next week for our year-end edition with our guests we've had every year for 10 years. United States Senator Eric Schmitt joins us next week on This Week in Missouri Politics.
This Week in Missouri Politics is sponsored by the Missouri Automobile Dealers Association, Ameren, Spire, the United Electric Cooperative, and the Missouri Association of Career Fire Protection Districts.
Guys, thank you so much for watching the show. I want to tell you about a new thing we're offering. It's the Missouri Times Podcast Network. You'll get this show every week. If you want to listen to it in your car, you don't have time to watch it. You'll get our Show in Missouri podcast, History of Missouri, one county at a time. You'll also get our midweek update. Once a week, I throw up the Facebook Live. We talk politics, usually eat a lunch and discuss politics. You'll get to hear all those things come right to your phone. Subscribe to us on iTunes or Android. Missouri Times Podcast Network. Please join us and subscribe.